January 15th, 1947. A crisp winter morning in Los Angeles. The city of dreams still slumbered under a blanket of morning fog as residents prepared for another day in the entertainment capital of the world. In the quiet neighborhood of Leimert Park, a young mother walked along Norton Avenue with her child. The vacant lot they passed seemed unremarkable, just another patch of undeveloped land in a rapidly expanding city. But what caught her would forever alter the landscape of American crime history. The call came into the Los Angeles Police Department at 10:40 a.m. Within minutes, detectives arrived at the scene, their faces transforming from professional detachment to shocked disbelief. Even veterans with years on the force had never witnessed anything like this. This wasn't just a murder, one detective would later write in his personal memoirs. This was a performance, a message, the work of someone who wanted their craftsmanship admired. By nightfall, newspapers across the city blazed with headlines. Reporters swarmed the scene, and within days, the story reached every corner of America. A young woman, an aspiring actress with jet black hair and a captivating smile, had been found carefully posed in the empty lot, her body dissected with surgical precision, drained of blood, and positioned in a deliberate tableau that resembled a macabre work of art. The public's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Citizens locked their doors. Women traveled in groups. Parents kept their children indoors after sunset. In a city built on fantasy and illusion, reality had suddenly intruded in the most horrifying way imaginable. The investigation would become the largest manhunt in Los Angeles history up to that time. Over 750 law enforcement personnel, hundreds of interviews, and thousands of hours of detective work. They gave her a nickname derived from a popular film of the era with a flower in its title, a name that would echo through American crime history for generations. But despite the massive effort, despite the media attention, despite the parade of suspects and confessions, the case would remain officially unsolved. Yet in the shadows of this investigation lingered theories, whispers, and secrets that pointed to uncomfortable truths about Hollywood, about power, about the dark currents flowing beneath the glittering surface of Los Angeles. What happened to the young woman found that January morning? Who orchestrated her final moments with such calculated precision? Why has this case remained unsolved for over 75 years? And what does our continued fascination with her death reveal about ourselves? This is not simply the story of a murder. It's a reflection of our collective shadow, our fascination with beauty destroyed, with mystery unsolved, with justice denied. It's about a young woman who came to Hollywood seeking immortality on the silver screen, and found it instead through her death. The truth has remained elusive, hidden in the half-light between fact and speculation. But perhaps by examining what we know with fresh eyes, by questioning what we've been told, we might finally shed light on Hollywood's most notorious unsolved murder. This is the story of the woman we came to know as the Black Dahlia. Los Angeles in the post-war era represented hope for millions. The war was over. The economy boomed, and Hollywood's golden age was in full swing. But beneath the gleaming surface of this dream factory, a different reality existed. One where young women arrived by the busload, their suitcases packed with ambition. She was one of those women, 22 years old, a daughter of New England who had drifted west like so many others, drawn by the magnetic pull of celebrity and opportunity. Friends described her as charming, beautiful, with a distinctive style that turned heads, her striking dark hair framing a pale complexion and unforgettable smile. She wasn't just another pretty face, recalled one acquaintance who knew her during those final months. She had this quality that made you remember her. When she walked into a room, people noticed. On January 9th, 1947, security cameras at the Biltmore Hotel captured her walking through the lobby. She wore a black suit with white trim and appeared to be waiting for someone. This would be the last confirmed sighting before her disappearance. For 6 days, her whereabouts remained unknown. 6 days during which her path intersected with someone who would forever alter the course of her life and death. What happened during those missing days? Who did she meet? Where did she go? These questions would haunt investigators for decades. The autopsy findings painted a horrific picture. The victim had endured extensive torture before death. The body showed evidence of being thoroughly washed clean. Most telling, there was almost no blood at the scene, indicating she had been killed elsewhere and transported to the vacant lot. This wasn't a crime of passion, the lead detective told his team during the first briefing. This was calculated, planned, executed with patience and precision. The press descended like vultures. Within days, they gave her a nickname, inspired by a recent film noir and her reported penchant for wearing black clothing. The name would become synonymous with Hollywood's dark underbelly, a cautionary tale wrapped in mystery. The public's fascination was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of tips flooded police phone lines. Dozens of men came forward claiming responsibility, most seeking nothing more than attention. The case became a mirror reflecting society's darkest fascinations. But as investigators peeled back layers of her life, they discovered complexities that didn't fit the innocent victim narrative. She had moved frequently, staying with different acquaintances. Her romantic history revealed a pattern of relationships with men who might pay for meals, provide shelter, or offer promises of Hollywood connections. She was always looking for the next opportunity, one friend told police. Always hoping the next person she met would be her ticket to stardom. Her address book contained dozens of names, many connected to the film industry. Directors, producers, wealthy businessmen, each representing a potential lead, a possible connection to her final days. One name emerged as particularly significant. As January turned to February, the investigation gained momentum but produced few concrete answers. The crime scene had yielded almost no physical evidence. No fingerprints, no murder weapon, no blood trail. Whoever had orchestrated this had covered their tracks with remarkable thoroughness. The coroner's conclusion was perhaps most disturbing. The perpetrator demonstrated knowledge of human anatomy consistent with medical training or experience in handling human remains. As night falls on Los Angeles, millions continue their daily lives unaware of the shadows that move among them. But for the detectives assigned to this case, a chilling reality had emerged. Somewhere in the city, perhaps in plain sight, walked someone capable of unfathomable acts. Someone who had crafted a murder so shocking it would echo through decades. And the most troubling question of all began to form in their minds. Was this the first such murder, or merely the first to be discovered? The investigation was about to enter its most challenging phase, and no one involved could predict the strange paths it would follow in the pursuit of justice for the woman now known to the world as the Black Dahlia. February 1947. The investigation had become the most extensive in Los Angeles police history. Every available detective worked the case. Hundreds of leads pursued. Thousands of hours spent interviewing witnesses. Yet answers remained elusive. The media scrutiny intensified daily. Reporters followed detectives, publishing details that complicated the investigation. The public demanded resolution, but the case refused to yield its secrets. Then came the call that changed everything. An editor at the Los Angeles Examiner received a package containing the victim's personal belongings, items missing since her death, a social security card, a birth certificate, an address book. Most disturbing was the message that accompanied them. Here is the belongings of the Black Dahlia. I will send her cut hair or pieces of her skin if you print more lies about me. The handwriting analysis provided a potential breakthrough. The same distinctive script appeared on envelopes addressed to the police department. Someone was watching the investigation, playing a calculated game with authorities. Catch me if you can, one message taunted. The writer claimed insider knowledge of the crime, details that hadn't been released to the public. Either this was the killer or someone with access to confidential information. Meanwhile, the investigation into her final days revealed troubling gaps. 6 days unaccounted for. 6 days during which she encountered her killer. The timeline became an obsession for the lead investigators. January 9th. Last seen at the Biltmore Hotel. January 10th through 14th. Location unknown. January 15th. Body discovered. The first serious suspect emerged. The married salesman who had given her a ride to Los Angeles. His story contained inconsistencies. His whereabouts during critical hours couldn't be verified. When questioned about scratches on his body, his explanation seemed rehearsed. The forensic evidence proved frustratingly limited. Tire tracks near the scene matched at least 6 common vehicle models. Footprints had been obscured by the first responders. The body itself, though positioned with such care, offered few clues beyond the precision of the wounds. The nature of the injuries continued to suggest medical knowledge. The cuts were precise, following anatomical planes. The body had been drained of blood and washed clean. These weren't the actions of an impulsive killer, but of someone with specific skills and a controlled environment. Investigators began checking medical facilities. Had anyone noticed unusual behavior among doctors, medical students, or orderlies? Had medical equipment gone missing? Had anyone requested unusual amounts of cleaning supplies? A doctor with connections to her social circle emerged as a person of interest. His psychiatric background and rumored interest in extreme forms of surgery placed him squarely on the investigators' radar. When questioned, his alibi appeared solid, but doubts lingered. Another suspect worked at a downtown hotel where she had allegedly stayed. His knowledge of psychology and history of violence against women made him a compelling suspect. Most troubling, he knew details about the case not released to the public. "What we're looking for," said one detective to his partner, "is someone with surgical knowledge, physical strength, access to a private location, and a vehicle. Someone who knew her or gained her trust." The psychiatric angle became increasingly important. What kind of mind could conceive and execute such an elaborate crime? Experts suggested a perpetrator with deep psychological disturbances, yet functional enough to maintain appearances in everyday life. A distinct profile emerged. Likely male, 30 to 45 years old, above average intelligence, methodical personality, possible medical background, and, most concerning, potentially presenting a respectable public face while harboring unthinkable private impulses. The investigation expanded to include Hollywood connections. Had her pursuit of stardom led her into dangerous circles? Had she encountered someone who promised fame but delivered death? The entertainment industry's darker corridors became a focus. Several film industry figures fell under scrutiny. A director known for his volatile temper and inappropriate behavior toward actresses. A producer with connections to organized crime. A talent agent whose female clients had reported disturbing encounters. By summer 1947, the case file had grown to thousands of pages. Witness statements, forensic reports, suspect interviews, false confessions, anonymous tips. The sheer volume of information became overwhelming, yet the essential truth remained hidden. Then came another breakthrough. A similar murder had occurred in Chicago 3 years earlier. The victim, another young woman with aspirations of fame. The method, precise dissection. The aftermath, a clean crime scene with a body carefully positioned. The possibility of a serial killer changed the investigation's scope. If the same person was responsible for both crimes, he was mobile, methodical, and had evaded capture for years. This wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a pattern that might still be unfolding. As 1947 drew to a close, public interest in the case began to wane. "This one gets under your skin," admitted the lead detective to a colleague. The way she was posed, like a message meant to be understood. Like the killer wanted us to know something essential about himself, about her, about the connection between them. For the woman now known worldwide as the Black Dahlia, justice remained elusive. Her story, once full of hope and ambition, had been rewritten by someone else's hand. Her legacy defined not by her dreams, but by the mystery of her end. And somewhere in Los Angeles, perhaps walking those same streets, breathing that same air, moved someone carrying an unimaginable secret. The answer to a question that had haunted a city for months. Who killed the Black Dahlia? Decades have passed since that January morning in 1947. The detectives who first investigated the case have long since departed. The newspapers that once blazed with headlines have yellowed in archives. Yet the mystery endures, capturing each new generation's imagination. Today, experts continue to study the case. New investigative techniques applied to old evidence. New theories tested against established facts. The question remains the same. Who was responsible for one of the most notorious murders in American history? Over the years, numerous theories have emerged, each compelling in its own way, each with passionate advocates, each with troubling gaps. The physician theory remains among the most compelling. A prominent doctor with a prestigious practice and troubling secrets. His knowledge of human anatomy. His connection to Hollywood's elite. His residence containing a room where such a crime could have been committed undetected. Most disturbing is the theory advanced by this doctor's own son decades later. After discovering disturbing photographs in his father's belongings, the serial killer theory gained momentum when investigators noted similarities between the Black Dahlia case and other unsolved murders from the same era. The precision of the wounds, the positioning of the bodies, the theatrical quality of the crime scenes. Were these all the work of one individual operating across state lines? The police corruption theory suggests a deliberate cover-up. Had the killer's identity been discovered but concealed because of connections to powerful figures? Had evidence been suppressed or destroyed? Former officers have hinted at institutional pressure to redirect the investigation away from certain suspects. The evidence points to a conspiracy of silence, wrote one investigative journalist who spent years researching the case. Too many leads abandoned too quickly. Too many witnesses suddenly changing their stories. Too many promising suspects cleared without thorough investigation. The organized crime connection offers another possibility. Had she witnessed something she shouldn't have? Had she been involved with someone connected to the criminal underworld? The brutality of the murder certainly suggested a message being sent, a warning to others. The psychological profile of the killer has been analyzed by generations of experts. The meticulous nature of the crime, the positioning of the body, the removal of personal items later mailed to the newspaper. These elements suggest someone deriving satisfaction not just from the act itself, but from the subsequent investigation. Modern forensic techniques have offered new hope. DNA analysis, advanced fingerprint comparison, computer modeling of blood spatter, yet the degradation of evidence over time and the contamination of the original crime scene continue to hamper these efforts. Beyond the investigation lies the cultural impact. The Black Dahlia murder has inspired countless books, films, television shows, and art exhibitions. Each new interpretation adds to the mythology surrounding the case. Each retelling moves us further from the human reality. A young woman whose life was cut short in the most horrific way imaginable. Perhaps what makes this case so enduring is what it represents about Hollywood itself. The contrast between glittering surface and shadow-filled depths. The promise of fame and the reality of exploitation. The dream factory that sometimes manufactures nightmares. Today's fascination with true crime owes much to this case. It established patterns of media coverage, public obsession, and amateur sleuthing that continue to this day. Each new generation discovers the story anew, finding in it reflections of their own cultural moment. Lost in the mythology is the truth of a real woman. 22 years old, a daughter, a friend, someone with hopes and dreams, flaws and virtues. Someone whose life amounted to far more than the manner of her death. She wasn't just a body in a vacant lot, recalled one friend in a later interview. For law enforcement, the case remains technically open. One of the oldest unsolved murders in Los Angeles history. Cold but not forgotten. A reminder of the limits of investigation, the passage of time, and the elusive nature of absolute truth. What truly happened in January 1947? Perhaps we'll never know with certainty. Perhaps the answer died with those involved. Perhaps it remains buried in evidence that has deteriorated beyond usefulness. Perhaps it waits to be discovered by some future investigator with fresh perspective and new tools. The Los Angeles of 1947 exists now only in photographs and memories. The Hollywood that the young woman sought to conquer has transformed beyond recognition. The investigators who promised to find justice have long since passed away. Yet the question they asked remains: who killed the young woman we know as the Black Dahlia? For decades, the case has whispered to us across time, challenging our assumptions about justice, about human nature, about the limits of investigation. It reminds us that some mysteries resist resolution, some questions echo without answer, some stories remain forever unfinished. Perhaps the most haunting aspect isn't what we know about the case, but what remains hidden. Not the evidence that was found, but what was never discovered. Not the witnesses who came forward, but those who remained silent. Not the suspects who were identified, but the one who escaped notice. For the woman whose life and death became an American legend, we can offer only this: remembrance. Not as a victim, not as a mystery, but as a human being whose story continues to matter, whose life deserves to be honored, whose truth, whatever it may be, deserves to be known. Somewhere in the shadows of history walks someone who knows the complete story. Someone who carries the weight of actions taken on those January days in 1947. Someone who holds the answer to Hollywood's most notorious unsolved murder. The case of the Black Dahlia remains open. The final chapter unwritten. The truth, like so much in the city of dreams, just beyond our grasp. Every mystery deserves to be heard. Subscribe to stay connected with stories that demand answers.